You know, inside every single child, there's this incredible whole universe of potential, and the key to unlocking it, it's the ability to read. Not just sounding out words, but really understanding them, questioning them, and building a future with them. But right here, in our community of Columbus, that key isn't reaching every child. It's the big question, isn't it? The one every parent, every teacher, every one of us has to ask. Are we really giving our kids the tools they need to thrive? Not just in school, but in college, in their careers, and, in life.
To get a real answer, a true one, we have to look past the chatter and go right to the facts. So for this explainer, we're going to go on a little investigative journey together, following the numbers to see what story they're telling us about reading in our city.
All right, first things first. We need to get a really clear picture of the situation. Think of this as our city's rating report card. We're going to look at the hard data to actually understand the problem before we can even start to think about how to solve it.
So our investigation kicks off with a super important source, the Ohio School Report Cards. This isn't somebody's opinion. This is the state's own measurement of how our schools are doing, and it's open for all of us to see.
And what's so powerful about these report cards is just how transparent they are. I mean, we can see everything from kindergarten reading progress all the way to high school English scores. We can compare our district to the state average, which, by the way, includes many of those surrounding suburban schools. And we can even drill down to see how different groups of students are doing. It's all right there.
So, okay, now that we know where the data comes from, what does it actually say about Columbus? This is where the story really starts to come into focus. This slide, well, it lays out the challenge in pretty stark terms. The gap you see here between Columbus City schools and the Ohio state average, that isn't just a number on a chart. It represents thousands of students who aren't yet reading at a level that's going to prepare them for what's coming next.
And this brings us to the impact. Because a gap in test scores today, well, that leads to a much bigger, much more serious gap tomorrow. And that's a fair question, right? Why do these scores matter so much? The answer, it turns out, goes way beyond the classroom. At the heart of this issue is something called text complexity. And this is the real hurdle that our students face as they go from elementary school to middle school, high school, and then out into the world.
According to Ohio's own learning standards, text complexity isn't just about using hard words. It's about sophisticated sentences, it's about deeper themes, and it's about the background knowledge a person needs to bring to the page just to make sense of it all. It's the difference between a simple storybook and, say, a legal document or a scientific paper.
And listen, this isn't some new discovery. The state itself identified this critical problem years ago. We are graduating students who are simply not prepared for the reading they'll have to do in college and in a modern job. That right there is the core of the challenge we're facing.
And this slide does a brilliant job of showing how this gap happens. In those early years, a kid can understand stories read aloud to them that are way more complex than anything they could read on their own. This is such a critical window of opportunity. If we don't expose them to rich language and complex ideas out loud, and then work to build their reading skills up to match it, that gap between what they can understand and what they can actually read just gets wider every single year. Okay, so we've explained the problem and we've shown the impact. And I know, that can feel a little overwhelming. But here's the good news. There are clear, actionable paths forward. This is where we talk about solutions. It really starts with a simple 3-step plan for everyone in the community. First, just know the standards. Get informed about what's expected at each grade level. Second, track the data we just talked about to see where your local school stands. And third, champion literacy. Make this a real conversation, something our entire community gets behind, from the barbershop to the boardroom. And you don't have to go it alone. Organizations like Meelevate are out there providing the very tools, the books, the programs, the support that families and volunteers can use to help bridge that complexity gap for a child they care about. This brings us to our final and, honestly, most important point. This is not just a school issue. It is a community opportunity.
When we talk about the future of Columbus, this is what we're talking about. The success of these kids is directly tied to the health, to the prosperity of our entire city. It's a shared responsibility, and it's a shared reward.
So how can you be part of the solution? You could volunteer your time as a reading mentor. You could encourage your company or your church to partner with a local school. You can advocate for policies that support literacy. You can use resources from Meelevate to help a kid in your own life. Or you could simply start a conversation. Share this explainer, talk to a neighbor, ask a school board member a question. Every single action matters. So, we've seen the data.
We've seen the impact, and we've seen the pathways to make a real difference. The only question left is the one we each have to answer for ourselves. What role will you play in writing the next chapter for the children of Columbus?